What's up everybody, Brett Medlock here. Sorry, it's been a minute since I've been on this channel. I know I keep saying that every time I make a video, but I've just been so focused on the Nintendo Enthusiast side. Yes, I play on Nintendo platforms as well, it's not a big deal. But of course I'm still playing my Vita a lot. I love the Vita, as you probably know if you follow this channel. That's mainly what I make is Vita videos, which is pretty surprising in 2018. And once again, I wanted to do Vita Highlight. I haven't done this series in a while. I'm doing a similar series over on the Nintendo Enthusiast channel now called Nindy Highlight, where I focus on some indie games for Switch that sort of get looked over. And I'm doing the same thing on this channel with some overlooked PlayStation Vita games of all shapes and sizes. And I'll just jump right into the next Vita Highlight game, and that is Resident Evil Revelations 2. Now, this game was totally surprising when it got announced for PlayStation Vita. I did not expect it one bit. It got announced at like PSX or something. It was like the final time Sony really pushed the Vita. They came up on stage, Gio Corsi came up on stage holding the Vita, and there was a big line of like 4 or 5 like unsuspecting games that were coming to Vita, and I loved that moment. That was like a few years ago now, which is still like a while after the Vita came out, so it was surprising. And when they announced Resident Evil Revelations 2, I was super stoked, and it actually came to it. It's one of them games where it could have totally gotten canceled and like no one would have really noticed, but it came to Vita. And yes, it's a weird port. It doesn't run all that great, it doesn't look all that great, but it's still the full-blown game. The skeleton of the game is all still intact, and I want to talk about it today, so let's jump on in. Now, right off the bat, I just want to say that the original Resident Evil Revelations is actually one of my favorite games of all time, because it's really similar, in my opinion, to Resident Evil 4, which probably is my favorite game of all time. I mean, it's up there with The Last of Us and Ocarina of Time. Like, it's just an amazing game, and I feel like out of all the sequels we've gotten, Revelations 1 was the most similar. Now, Revelations 2 is a bit different. It brought in more of a co-op element, and you also have like a miniature partner who kind of works for you and kind of doesn't, and it shook things up a little bit. I appreciate that. I wish it was more similar to the original, but I'm still happy with what we got. Now, if you didn't know, Resident Evil Revelations 2 story consists of more classic Resident Evil characters, Claire Redfield and Barry Burton. Now, early in the game, you find out that Barry's daughter is being held captive on an island by the Overseer. You don't really know who it is, and you slowly start to figure it out, and it turns into a crazy, awesome boss fight. But anyway, Barry sets out to find her, and you meet a little girl along the way, and she ends up being your partner. Now, this is where the co-op element begins. One person plays as a character that can't really shoot, can't really do much, and then the other character gets a full-blown, like, awesome character to play as. And that's my main gripe with the game, is that if you're doing co-op, one of the people is not really doing that much. They're just sort of along for the ride. They're not shooting anything, and they're not doing anything really special, and that kind of bums me out. I do like whenever the characters are separated, because then the game implements some more horror elements, because, you know, it's just more scary when you're all alone, and that's how it is in this game. But yeah, Resident Evil Revelations 2 gameplay is a bit different than the first entry in the series. It has a much larger emphasis on things like stealth, which is an interesting take for the Resident Evil series. And honestly, side note, back to the Natalia, the girl that you have like following you along in this game, it sort of reminds me of The Last of Us a little bit. You're like an older male with this younger girl who's not like super like important to the gameplay, but she does add a little bit. She's considerably weaker than Barry, but she still plays an important role overall in the story. Now, I'm not going to jump into spoilers or anything, because I think you should play this game if you're into the Resident Evil series or third-person shooter games. It's honestly a wild ride throughout the game, and I think you should play it for yourself to find out. But anyway, now back to the graphics. This game obviously was not developed originally for the PlayStation Vita. Like, you look at a game like the original Resident Evil Revelations, it was originally developed for the 3DS. And if you look at that game, it's probably still the best looking game for 3DS. It almost looks like a console quality game on the go, like the Vita's whole thing. And that always impressed me. Like, the second I saw it, I was like, no way is this running on a handheld. And it turns out it looks amazing on 3DS. Now, when they put it on the PS3 and then the PS4, it obviously doesn't look as good when it's blown up on a big screen. But anyway, back to Resident Evil Revelations 2. I keep talking about the first one. Now, this game obviously developed from the ground up for the PS3 and PS4 and 360 and PC and all that stuff. It's a console game that they ported to Vita, and if you know anything about that, if you played some like the Atelier games, you can tell when they're developed for PS3 or PS4 and then they just port them over to Vita because they look considerably worse and they run like trash. And Resident Evil Revelations, it's a similar experience. You're not getting this pristine, amazingly running game, but it's still a full console game on the Vita, and that's all I asked for. Like, I've always said, I don't really care how ugly the game is. I'm not a graphics guy. If it looks like the same world, if it's dumbed down and it looks like an early iPhone game, I don't really mind if I can play it on my Vita, if I can get trophies, if I can take it anywhere I want to and play it. That's all I really care about. And it is kind of strange considering that the Vita is more powerful than the 3DS, but Revelations 1 looks better than Revelations 2 did on the Vita, but it's just weird circumstances. This game was obviously not intended for the Vita, but they made it work, and it makes me really happy. So that's all I really got to say about it today, guys. Let me know if you played Resident Evil Revelations on the Vita or on other consoles. What'd you think of the first one and the second one? I love the first one, and I think the second one is great. I'm probably going to play through it again on my way to EGLX later this month. And that's another thing. I'm going to have my own panel at EGLX in Toronto. If you just so happen to be in that area, please come to my panel. I don't know how many people are going to show up. Like I said, I'm just from Nintendo Enthusiast channel and PlayStation Enthusiast channel, and they're kind of small, so I'm not sure how it's going to be, but I would love to get some support from you guys. So please be on the lookout if you're in that area. I'll probably do another video talking about EGLX before I even do that, so I don't even know why I mentioned this in this video, because it has nothing to do with it. That's all I got to say today, guys. I'm Brett Medlike. I will talk to you guys later.